with a combined record of 3-7 in their respective last 10 fights, and for the American bad boy, Charlie Ontiveros, his last win over 5-4 Washington Luis back in December of 2019, gonna look to turn around his fortunes at 155 pounds, taking on Gabriel Moggly Benitez, a guy who kneed Justin Jane's spine out of his back in 2020.
One of the grossest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was awesome and bad at the same time. I mean, when I look at this matchup, obviously, Matt, for Charlie Ontiveros, the results have not been good in the UFC. Comes in on short notice at 185, fighting Kevin Holland, who was a Phoenix Rising in 2020, and he loses that fight. And then his last time out against Steve Garcia, he loses again by finish. For Ontiveros, he's 11-8. And he's big, and he's the most accredited Kempo karate guy you're going to find at 155 pounds, and he fights like it. He's got that low, like Street Fighter video game style stance where he throws backwards axe kick, which, if you do forget, I mean, he did get finished by Steve Garcia's last time out, but don't forget that he wobbled and dropped Steve Garcia with an axe kick, then he wobbled him with a straight shot, but then he wasn't able to get it done, and in the second round, Garcia was able to take over, get the finish. For Charlie Ontiveros, the parts are there. If I showed you a silhouette of Charlie Ontiveros fighting, you'd go, hey, that guy with that weird hair, and that guy that really fights in an odd style.
His shoulder.
And he's way too big for 155. That guy's a lot of fun to watch, and I agree with you. The trouble is for Charlie Ontiveros, obviously all the finished losses, some of them have been by injury, some have been, neck related, or he did actually get TKO'd, but the combined record of the wins for Ontiveros, 46-30, so it hasn't been that great. The combined record of the losses, 62-25, those 7 of the 8 losses by knockout include losses to Jeff Neal and Michael Venom Page. Kind of wild levels of competition. And also 1-0 Will Morris not that long ago.
Not to put words in your mouth, but I think we can agree on this. You're not as nerdy as I am, just in day-to-day life. I'm not like a crazy nerd, but I'm about middle tier. This fight's like Batman versus Superman. Hear me out. Well, Superman definitely beats Batman. He has superpowers. The other guy's a regular person. Gabriel Benitez is way more skilled than Charlie Ontiveros. I don't think anyone's going to argue that with me.
In mixed martial arts, yeah.
Exactly.
I'd say so.
Much cleaner on the feet with his striking. I would even say he has a grappling advantage. He's someone who has shown the ability to throw out some defensive submissions in the past. I'm not saying Benitez is some god off his back by any means, but still, he has a very nice foundation for this sport without a doubt. Where that conversation always goes into with Batman versus Superman is, though, how much time does Batman have to prepare, He's got gadgets, he's smart. If he has time to prepare, maybe he can make the difference. And for Charlie Ontiveros, I agree with you. The intangibles do favor him. I expect these guys to look like they are 7 weight classes apart on Fight Night. I truly do. I think Ontiveros is going to look like a middleweight, and I think Benitez is going to look like a featherweight. Probably where both these guys belong. But I could not agree more with one of the statements you made. Charlie Ontiveros is at the point where the weight cut becomes a point of diminishing returns. Cutting weight does help people, and I'm in a very small minority, or a very small boat, I should say, to where, weight cutting in MMA is not, the worst thing ever. The good thing about cutting weight in MMA is it makes sure that you are in the best shape of your life to be able to make that weight so you cut off the extra fat. There are positives to it. I understand the people who make these crazy weight cuts. There's more negatives than positives, but still, when you require people to weigh in at a specific weight class, look at the difference between the quality of fights in, bantamweight or heavyweight. In heavyweight, you have a very wide range that you can weigh in. You see a lot of those guys physically, and you think, hey, I look like that guy, and I'm on the couch. Charlie Ontiveros is going to have to make a dramatic weight cut to get down to 155, and I'm always concerned about that at this weight class, because Benitez is someone who's almost on the opposite side of that scale. We both talked a lot in his fight with Omar Morales about, hey, how is he going to deal with the bigger guy? Is he going to be able to go up and sort of match physically that larger fighter? Now, against Omar, he was not able to, but Morales is much more of a pressure boxer. He's sort of all over you when he fights, whereas Ontiveros will kind of play your game from the start of the fight, and that's what I worry about. If Ontiveros feels like, hey, I'm the bigger guy, I'm the more powerful striker, maybe I can go out there and strike for strike with Benitez. I've got bad news for him, because I really do think the body shots of Benitez are going to be important for this fight, because let's say Ontiveros does cut a lot of weight, and I think a 6'2" guy fighting at 155, it's fair to say he cuts a decent amount of weight. I do worry about his susceptibility to the body shots against a guy who we mention all the time. Benitez has some of the best body attacks in the UFC, so I think that's a very key X factor that might make the whole difference in the fight.
I think you're going to get a knockout in this fight, and it's really hard to tell you who. Gabriel Benitez hasn't really looked all that great. Obviously, he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Now, if I go through the performances, you look at just these last 5. Microcosm. Finished by Sadiq Youssef.
He did drop him, though.
competitive fight against Omar Morales, loses the decision, finishes Justin James, loses to Billy Q in a fight of the night, and then he loses to David Onama by knockout, where he gets, like, the referee lets a lot of stuff fly that really didn't need to fly. Now, Benitez did rock David Onama, had him pawing at that eye. Benitez was looking pretty damn good as a big underdog. But when I do look at it, I mean, Benitez, he's got a fight of the night. He's got 2 performance bonuses. I figure, okay, well, maybe Benitez can implement some wrestling. And then I had to really put my glasses on and push him up tight. He has 1 takedown in his UFC career. It's a slam knockout against Humberto Bandenay. So I understand that he's not a wrestler. I would think maybe try and implement some of his grappling or some of his jiu-jitsu. It's hard to do that when you can't wrestle. So not to say that he can't. It's just that I haven't seen it. It's Santa Claus. It's not that he's not real, I just haven't seen him.
What I do like out of Benitez, though, is we know that once it does hit the mat, I agree with you, he does lack sort of the transitional ability to take the fight from the feet to the mat, or vice versa, but he does some lost fish off his back out of water. Like, he does show a good level of jiu-jitsu off his back, he can get back up to his feet, so I think on the mat, I think it's fair to say Benitez does have the advantage out of these two, but on the feet, again, do you like the technical prowess of Gabriel Benitez, or do you think the size at a certain point is going to outweigh whatever technical advantages you might have at this weight class? Because that's the thing about Benitez. I'm curious how much weight he does cut to get to 155. It might only be like 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 7 pounds, almost like Cowboy moving down to 170. Like, he doesn't really look that much different on weigh-ins or the day of the fight. So I think it will be a very interesting fight between these two guys. But for Benitez, I still think he's a little bit cleaner on the feet. And Ontiveros has not shown me much at the UFC level. Like, that's not a wild thing to say either. He hasn't looked great. And at 155, I just don't know what version of him we're going to get.
Well, I mean, for Gabriel Benitez open, a decent favorite, minus 280, minus 367 right now is the average. For Ontiveros open, plus 220, plus 282. If you go with the minus 367 implied odds, win probability 78.6%. For Benitez to win. We have a look over on Topology. The votes are a surprise to us, they are to you. I'm going to say, okay, over under 78.6% Benitez. You're going to say over under?
Without a doubt, lower.
Say lower? It's over. 578 total votes, 87% Benitez, 19% by decision, 74% by knockout. For the 13% that have Ontiveros, 59% by knockout. I don't think, we're way too early in the week to have anything in terms of props or whatnot. I think Gabriel Benitez can get the win. I think there's just going to be a finish, and there's a lot of variables here. Eager to see these guys face off on Friday and offer up a final pick and prediction on Question Mark Kicks on Saturday, the live show, 2 hours before the prelim. So cheap plug there. I like Benitez, like the kicking game, like the boxing game. But for the bigger guy, Ontiveros, if he can pressure Benitez back against the cage, unless you're Justin James, it could be a good opportunity for Ontiveros to get his first UFC win.
You have a big guy who cuts a lot of weight against one of the best body attackers in the UFC. Again, some of the intangibles I do worry about because on Fight Night, Ontiveros should be the bigger guy. I don't doubt that at all. Like, I would look Charlie Ontiveros dead in the eyes. And, like, I'm a thin guy. I weigh more than 155 pounds.
Are you a fun guy?
Without a doubt, I'm a fun guy. I'm more fun than Kawhi Leonard. You brought that up 2 weeks in a row now. You're a big Kawhi and Raptors jerseys fans. But for Gabriel Benitez, and I've had people in my DMs be like, hey, you're the Gabriel Benitez. You're like the Spike Lee of Gabriel Benitez. No one's ever said that, but still. I have had people be like, hey, you're the only person who talks about Gabriel Benitez, and I appreciate it. He is a fun action fighter, and that's how I look at this fight. We had talked about Drew Dober fighting Rafael Alves a couple weeks ago, and it was, hey, we have that in the fight of the night screen, and I didn't doubt Alves could win that fight, but still, if they fight in a fight of the night manner, I do favor Drew Dober. With these guys, I kind of look at it the same way. I think this is going to be a very exciting fight, especially from the get-go, but who do I favor if it does become one of those fight of the night style fights? Charlie Ontiveros, who's 11-8 with a lot of finished losses, or Gabriel Benitez, who may not have looked great as of late.
He's batting 500 in the UFC,
exactly.
6-6.
But we all know how good he can be on his best day, and I would take the potential ceiling of Gabriel Benitez over the intangibles of Ontiveros.
Both of us going with a yikes big favorite, Gabriel Benitez, to get the win. You let us know down below in the comments section, because there were a lot of Charlie Ontiveros fans before the Steve Garcia fight. We want to hear from you folks down there in the comments. The big fights on this card: 135, the dance in the main event, Marlon Vera taking on Dominic Cruz. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
let's get into it.